Hey, I'm back from 1 week without posting, so let's begin. Third POV. It had been a few days since Izuku had watched the quirk apprehension test for 1A, and he had also gone and saw the same test that Vlad King did for 1B. Though, his was without the expulsion threat that Eraserhead likes to do. Neither class called out the weirdness of a low mist fog being on the training grounds when the weather wasn't calling for it, nor did it seem natural. Izuku told both teachers that the students would really need a lesson in situational awareness, as something so glaring as unnatural fog on a training ground without the correct weather conditions should have been questioned, which both teachers agreed upon. Now, while all that happened, Izuku was currently sitting in a cat cafe. Izuku had found this nice small cat cafe that was in one of the areas he typically patrolled, as it was between the more populated area and the more crime-infested areas, which was a perfect spot for him to stop for a break on his patrols. Izuku had found this nice small cat cafe that was in one of the areas he typically patrolled, as it was between the more populated area and the more crime-infested areas, which was a perfect spot for him to stop for a break on his patrols. As Izuku was sitting in the room, he heard the doorbell go off, indicating someone walked in, which was strange even though it was a 24/7 cat cafe, as he typically was the only one that came around this time of night, or rather a day. It was 3 a.m. after all, since he normally did his night patrols on Saturdays and Sundays with daytime patrols the rest of the time unless something directly required him to change it. As Izuku waited to see who entered, he became shocked to see who it was, as it was his adoptive brother Hitoshi Shinso, or rather Hitoshi Aizawa. Now, does Aizawa know you're out this late? Izuku asked, which caused Hitoshi to freeze up when he heard the voice and turned to see who it was. Yes, Hitoshi said, with earned a chuckle from Izuku as he spoke out. That sounded like a question and not an answer. Just tell me the truth so I know. I'm not mad or going to rat you out to him as long as you're not doing something dangerous, which I don't consider coming here dangerous. I would recommend finding one closer to home instead of this far out though, Izuku said, and Hitoshi was more relaxed as he didn't seem tense anymore. Hitoshi explained that this was the cat cafe he used to come to all of the time when he lived closer to this area, which Izuku could understand. Let's make a deal. You only come to this one during my break so I can ensure your safety, since you are really close to the high crime-infested area. I have my provisional license so I can legally defend myself and you. When I leave from my break, then you have to return home, and on all other days except Saturday and Sunday. You find one that is closer to the house. Deal? Izuku asked, and Hitoshi agreed, as they sat there enjoying the silence outside of the cat's purring. Hitoshi decided to ask Izuku some questions. You know, even though you're my adoptive brother, I don't know anything about you. Would you mind telling me your actual name or hobbies? Hitoshi asked, which was a fair question since Izuku hardly is ever at Aizawa, since he sees them at the school or on patrols. Izuku nodded his head and decided to offer some information up. I will tell you, but you can't go around talking about me, since there is a pro hero that caused my entire situation, which we can't lock up due to the secrets he knows. It would be troublesome for quite a few of us if he gave the information out, as it would throw society into a mess. Understood? Izuku asked Hitoshi, who nodded his head. Izuku sighed as he straightened up more. Do you want my current name or my old name? Izuku asked, and Hitoshi asked for both, which Izuku gave him. I currently go by Izuku Yagi. You might think I would take Aizawa as you did, or something like Nezu, since he is my other adoptive parent who has shared custody of me, but Yagi actually comes from another pro hero who you have met, but I won't say who. They also wanted to adopt me, but they are ill and can't really care for me and themselves, so I took their last name on in recognition of my connection to them, as my connection with them is a deep one, Izuku said, and Hitoshi was shocked he met the other person that wanted to adopt his adoptive brother, as he wondered who it was since he has met a lot of pro heroes lately. Izuku then told Hitoshi his former last name. My former last name was Midoriya, which is ironic because of my green hair, Izuku said as he lowered his hood, showing his entire face, which shocked Hitoshi on how young Izuku was. Shocked that I am the same age as you, but already a provisional pro hero before you even started up this year? Izuku asked, which Hitoshi nodded his head as he was really confused, due to situations that are going on. The commission provided me a provisional license so I could help out. My very first mission was the mission where I met you actually, Izuku said with a smirk on his face as he drank some of his coffee and looked at the clock to make sure he wasn't out of time. Why? Why did they send a complete rookie to save us? No offense, Hitoshi said as he didn't want to offend his adoptive brother. Because due to my powers I could make it to the island. Unlike others, not going to explain the entire thing, but the mist you've noticed at the exam or at the quirk test Aizawa did is me hiding while I expose some of my power. I've hardly used more than 30% any time as I am still growing. Anyway, I'm diverging, Izuku said as he brought the conversation back to the main point they were talking about. My last name was Midoriya, and you need to be careful of using my first or either of my last names. The pro hero that decided to make me out as a villain as he turned my own mother against me when I was a child. is likely still after me, and sadly we can't do anything to him unless he decides to make another move against me since there is a lot at risk. As such, just call me by my hero name if I am in the outfit. If I'm not, then just use Izuku since it would be safer against that pro hero," Izuku said, and Hitoshi asked what the pro hero wanted from Izuku, which made Izuku tense a bit and Hitoshi notice. "It's something I couldn't give him since I was entrusted to keep it safe by another pro hero who was dying at the time. The hero that came after me was greedy for it and didn't believe I should have obtained it even though I was entrusted with it. As such, he turned my mother against me as he witnessed the physical abuse she did right in front of her. It also leads to me getting starved for days before I ran away since she threatened to kick me out. This led me to escape to a forest for years before the hero who entrusted me with the thing found me with others he trusted. I then ended up in the care of Nezu and Aizawa at UA, which also resulted in me getting my provisional license due to my power. I am also a teacher's assistant at UA as well, by the way, so don't be surprised to see me in class," Izuku said as he dropped a lot of information bombs on his adoptive brother, which was fun to watch the range of expressions go across Hitoshi's face. Hitoshi then spoke after being silent for a bit of time. "Is that why you act so much older than you are? I've had to grow older mentally due to my life, but not to the degree you have," Hitoshi said, and Izuku nodded his head as he confirmed it. "Indeed. That is what happens when you live in a forest without being in contact with society starting from around the age of 9, which is roughly when I ran away. I had to physically care for myself, which led to mental developments as I learned everything I could to survive with the help of the past users, which is still going to cause large mental development since they couldn't do anything physically for me," Izuku said as he finished his coffee and noticed the time, which meant he needed to get back out on patrol for the rest of the night. "Hitoshi, it's time for you to go home since I have to go back on patrol. Remember the deal we made?" Izuku said, and Hitoshi nodded his head as he stood up and left the cat cafe with Izuku, who dissipated into mist, which Hitoshi found cool as the night was a bit foggy already. Izuku walked Hitoshi from afar a bit as he watched him leave towards Aizawa's home. After watching for a bit, he left to go back on his patrol and was dealing with criminals, but Izuku noticed something. Something feels off. It feels too calm. I've only had a few criminals in this high-crime area, Izuku thought as he stopped on a rooftop and analyzed everything he knew so far. For the last night or so there had been a large drop in villains that Izuku would find. He also noticed it during the day a bit as well, since he would still go to high-crime areas since he wanted to help as many people as possible. Nighttime though always had far more criminals most of the time, but there was hardly anyone around. As Izuku moved around, he found a few criminals and defeated them quickly as they were doing a drug trade. Izuku asked them where everyone was at since there tends to be far more of them out and about. One man didn't want to answer, but another was a bit more loose-lipped as he said there was a villain group that recruited a lot of people for an attack. Izuku asked where the attack would be and when, but the man only said he knew it was going to be tomorrow and that was it. This annoyed Izuku, but he couldn't get anything more out of him as he turned them over to the police that he had called. After watching the police leave, Izuku decided to text the UA staff chat and the police detective as he wanted them all about a large drop in villains which was connected to a villain group planning an attack on Monday somewhere. They asked if he knew where, but he said he only knew it was meant to be tomorrow, but had no idea where all the low-level villains were attacking, as he asked the detective to send an alert out for heroes to be on guard tomorrow for a large gathering. The villains attacking somewhere possibly, sadly for Izuku and UA. The villain attack would hit far closer to home than they would realize. Izuku woke up in his bed as he had just left the dreamscape where he was talking to all of the past users. Izuku's ill feeling had transferred to them, it seems, as even they felt some sense of forbearance about this day. Something felt off since last night, and Izuku didn't know why, as he kept thinking about the low-level villains that were gathering for the villain attack or whatever the drug dealer claimed that night. Izuku decided to just go straight into wearing his outfit all day today, even though he didn't have a patrol scheduled today as it was an off day for him. As Izuku came downstairs, he saw Nezu finish cooking the breakfast as they both sat down. "Today feels off for you, I assume?" Nezu asked, and Izuku asked if it was off for him as well, which he nodded his head at. "You don't live as long as I do as a quirked animal with human intelligence that makes humans nervous about without having a huge feeling of good sense on things," Nezu said as he told Izuku that he had all of the cameras watching all of the campuses in case they are somehow attacked, since it was all he could do right now. As they finished eating, they headed to the school where Nezu had warned all of the staff to be on guard, since even he didn't feel like the day would be a good one, which had set them all on high alert since Nezu's gut feelings tended to be highly accurate. As the day went on, Izuku walked around the building when danger sense went off with a huge warning. The quirk was telling him that someone with high ill were nearby, which Izuku pulled his phone out and alerted Nezu. "Eraserhead, and All Might about since they were the only ones to know the full truth of his quirk and danger sense. They all responded that they would be on guard while All Might said he was still heading towards the school as he texted. A few moments later, the security system went off alerting to the fact that someone was at the gate and had broken in, but Danger Sense was telling him that there was or danger closer to him in the building, so Izuku activated his quirk as he spread his mist out into the vents so he could travel quicker. As he moved around, the Danger Sense went off right above the staff room when he got close to it, which caused him to drop into the room ready to fight, but when he appeared there was no one in the room, which he found odd as Danger Sense was no longer going off. What? Izuku thought as he looked around for any disturbances but found none. The alarm then went off as Izuku found a text saying it was the press, which he found complete bullshit as Danger Sense shouldn't have warned him that largely if it was the press who was presenting the danger. Izuku made his way out to the gates through the vents, though he did pass through the lunchroom to check there. He saw that Ada had calmed everyone down and they were all exiting the room calmly, which was a good job on his part. Izuku arrived at the gate and examined it, which he saw that the gate was in pieces that looked like it was broken down. This couldn't have been the press, Izuku muttered out as Nezu walked up to him, who agreed with him. Indeed, something is off, Nezu said as some other staff was around them. Izuku pulled his phone and showed a message to Nezu, which told Nezu that Danger Sense had sensed someone in the staff room, but when he arrived it had gone off already and no one was present, which concerns him that someone may have been in the room before he arrived. Interesting. I will check the cameras to see, but we don't know what they would have taken if they indeed were in there. All we can do is prepare for the worst, Nezu said as he told Izuku to join Wana on their trip to the USJ. All Might is meant to go with them, but I doubt he will arrive in time. There is also the issue of his limit, since he used half of it up as he only has 2.5 hours left of the 5-hour limit he currently has. I don't know if I want to have him waste it there in the event of a second attack when we can have you go instead. It's also about time the students see you in person and meet the teacher's assistant as well, Nezu said, which Izuku nodded his head at when All Might arrived at the gate. He quickly came over and asked if everyone was safe, which they said they were but had concerns. As of now, I am replacing you at the USJ, since you only have half your time left. This way, if something happens, you have time left to deal with the threats instead of wasting it holding your form in front of the student. I also need to officially meet the students, which I can do now anyway, Izuku said, and All Might nodded his head as he said he was going to the staff room so he wouldn't waste his time. They nodded their heads as he left, and Power Loader got to work on fixing the gate while some others helped him. Eraserhead went ahead to go to the classroom since he needed to get the students ready to go to the USJ. Izuku nodded his head as he would sneak onto the top of the bus as they left so he could show himself when they arrived, which Eraserhead agreed with since it would be fun to see the students freak out at Izuku's sudden arrival. As they all got to work, Izuku's feeling of something going wrong only increased. What is going to go wrong? Izuku thought as he hides in some trees near the buses outside of the range of the long-range hearing people. Izuku saw them all in their hero outfits and almost chuckled as he saw Hitoshi wearing a copy of the Eraserhead scarf. That did remind him that Hitoshi was in the middle of training with it, which he found so adorable of them. Soon they were all on the bus after Ada waved his arms around since he was the class representative in Izuku's sad view as the boy was way too stiff still. Izuku then moved to the top of the bus as he kept a mist form on it so the people inside with hearing quirks wouldn't hear him, since he knew for a fact they couldn't hear him making sounds inside of his mist since it covered it. After a short trip on the bus, they arrived at the USJ, where 13 was standing outside of the building and greeted them all. Welcome all of you. I am the Rescue Pro Hero 13, and with me today was meant to be All Might, but instead we have, 13 was saying as Izuku had used his mist to put enough at people's feet without them knowing except Eraserhead and 13 who have gotten used to Izuku's pranks. You have me, Izuku said as he appeared out of what appeared to be thin air as he laid an arm on 13 and hanged off of her. Indeed, this is the teaching assistant at UA Raiden. You will all see him out and around UA if he is not out on patrol. Today he will be helping us here during your training instead of All Might, who needed to deal with other matters on campus, 13 said as some questioned who Raiden was. Izuku said he would answer them as they went through their day and on other occasions since they needed to their training. As such, they made their way into the building as 13 started to explain the rules and what they would be doing. Though as she nearly finished, Danger Sense triggered warning Izuku with all different messages and feelings. One feeling was the feeling of dread. The words that were pushed into his mind were things such as threat, murderous intent, and the word that scared him the most was the words that said something had the feeling of all for one, which is what sent Izuku into complete fear as that man was meant to be dead. As Izuku heard those words, he quickly turned around as he yelled for Eraserhead to get the students out. Eraserhead, get the students out of here now, Izuku yelled as he powered his quirk up and had multiple of them going on, such as float, mist, black whips, and all of the passive quirks as well on top of one for all. Izuku wasn't holding back against anything associated with all for one, since that was a recipe for disaster. as everyone was confused about what Raiden was doing, releasing so much power which felt suffocating. Eraserhead was more concerned than confused, as he knew Izuku always held back against people since he could easily kill someone. For him to show so much power meant something dangerous, so his mind kicked into overdrive and ordered for them all to escape. Kaminari, attempt to contact the campus now, Eraserhead said as he pushed his students who were confused towards the exit, and then it happened as all of the lights flickered on and off and a portal appeared in the center of the building which caught Izuku's glare. Before the portal even fully opened, Izuku had pulled his arm back and let loose an 85% punch which sent a sheer amount of wind pressure at the center and ripped the ground up. Everyone was stunned at the devastation, but the weird portal only reformed, which earned a curse out of Izuku. Damn it. Was hoping to stop their quirk from completing, Izuku muttered as he prepared for a fight. Out of the portal that was now stable came an army of villains which Izuku realized was meant to be the attack that was going to happen today. So Yue was the target. That means the attack this morning was a distraction and information gathering mission most likely, Izuku said out loud as a clapping sound was heard from one of the villains down below. Indeed. Now, I don't know who you are, but I believe All Might was meant to be here. We did steal his schedule after all, which said he was assigned to this class today. So, where is he? Asked the person down in the center, but Izuku's attention got grabbed by something else. It got grabbed by the monster standing next to the man, which had danger sense going off like crazy, warning about multiple quirks and connected to All for One, which had all of the users warning Izuku to be careful as they have never seen something like that before and had no idea what it could do. All Might is not here today as I've taken his place, though. I would like to know about that monster you have next to you. What is it? Izuku asked, hoping the villain would be prideful enough to be an idiot to release the information. Turns out the villain was indeed very prideful. This is the anti-symbol, our weapon made to kill the symbol of peace. Though, it seems we will have to draw All Might here by killing the students off first, said the man who Izuku learned was Shigaraki from the warp user, who asked his fellow villain not to give out too much information but got waved off. It doesn't matter. Not like they can stop something that was meant to kill All Might after all. All of you go kill them. The villain known as Shigaraki ordered his men as Izuku jumped down, as he had spread a large amount of mist out across the building and was only increasing it with a heavy concentration in the plaza, while Izuku jumped down. The villain known as Kurogiri, or that is what Shigaraki called him, ordered the warp user to spread the students out around the building. The warp user appeared next to the students and tried to warp, but Eraserhead stopped the warp gate. Oh. This will be troublesome, Kurogiri said, but sadly for the class, Bakugo and Kirishimiya both attacked the warp user against the wishes of their teachers, which resulted in Eraserhead getting warped away. I must thank you. If not for you two, then I would have been captured, Kurogiri said, which made the two students pale. Kurogiri then was attacked by 13, who had their own attack turned on them, as Kurogiri had warped most of the students away, though he was unable to stop Ida from escaping the building to go get more heroes to help out. This was how the USJ attack had started out, and the reveal of All for One being alive coming out. With that, see you soon and bye-bye.